We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday, and we're recording a Substack Live. I love doing the Substack Lives. Uh, they're pretty cohesive, they're pretty calm, they're pretty straightforward. We don't have to deal much with Trumplafucks. Works out just perfectly. And there's always a lot of folks that come in, and that's the important part of this. I want to remind you that your participation is encouraged. In fact, it's necessary. For me to sit here for an hour or so talking off the top of my head, um, that's kind of dull as far as I'm concerned. You getting involved, asking questions, making comments, that's what makes it interesting. So I hope that you'll jump on board with those questions and comments. I see TJ is with us. If you listen to the Rational Boomer podcast, you know who TJ is. TJ is a moderator of mine on TikTok and YouTube, and also a regular guest on the podcast. Smart guy, and knows his shit. And he'll be kind of trolling out there for Trumplafucks. But TJ, I don't think we have that much trouble with it here on Substack. Sharon says, greetings at Rational Boomer. Greetings to you. Did I hear Trumplafuck? Well, you could have. If I'm talking, there's a good chance that word would come out. If not yet, certainly before the night's over, you will hear the term Trumplafuck many times. It's become a regular part of my vernacular. In fact, a lot of people in my family, my wife specifically, will refer to Trumplafucks now. One time I had an elderly woman, like late 70s, early 80s, send me a note and said, hey, Boomer, how do you spell Trumplafuck? And I said, well, there's really no spelling for it. It's just a word I made up. She goes, no, but I want to know how you would spell it. And I just pulled something out of the air. I said, Trumplifuck, Trumplafuck. She goes, okay, good. And I said, can I ask you, why do you want to know how to spell Trumplafuck? She said, because I want to get the spelling correctly when I make my post on Facebook. 80-year-old woman posting the word Trumplafuck. I'd pay money to see that. That's interesting. Anyhow, we've got a lot to talk about here. And like you say, if you have any special areas or special things you want to talk about, don't hesitate to let us know what that is. We've got the whole thing with Donald Trump firing the statistics commissioner, the labor statistics commissioner. And what you have to understand about this whole situation is this has never been done before. This is really kind of a problem. Somebody asked Donald Trump if we can trust any of the numbers coming out. Because, see, if Donald Trump claims these are false and then he hires somebody else and they come in and they actually give false numbers, that's kind of important because there are a lot of people, the Fed, investors, big corporations, they all look at these numbers to make decisions in the future. And if they can't trust those decisions, it really fucks things up. Donald Trump's not concerned with that. Donald Trump is concerned with if he's embarrassed or not. I saw Donald Trump's financial guy, Hassett, that wormy motherfucker. He was on some show and they asked him, do you have any evidence that these numbers were rigged? And he kind of stammered and he kind of went back and forth. And then he said, well, just by virtue of the numbers being so bad, that would tell you that they're wrong. Just because they're bad, they're wrong. This guy is an incredible weasel. He's like everybody else that works for Donald Trump. They will be willing to lie or do whatever they have to do just to make him happy, in spite of the damage that it might do to this country. So that's the unfortunate thing. I will tell you this about this Hassett guy. When it's all said and done and Donald Trump is no more, the only financial work he's going to do is probably be doing some accounting for some prison guards. That's about all that he's going to have because he's going to have some things he needs to address. All right, what do we got here? Gerald says he's slimy, but watch, he tells on himself. Yeah, he always tells on himself. Well, they all do, really. I think these people understand that they're lying and that what they're saying is ridiculous and they're a little embarrassed by it. So they try to couch things. They won't say outright something a lie, but they'll try to talk around it, talk circles around it. But a lot of these people aren't very good at it. Spacer says, "What do you make of the incompetent Supreme Court looking to further dismantle the Voting Rights Act, specifically Article 2, which mitigates partisan gerrymandering? It's not going to work out for them in Texas, so now they're throwing anything at the wall. I'm so proud of Texas Democrats." Yeah, I'm very proud of the Texas Democrats too. Um, it's weird when you watch the media. I get a little frustrated. These people are trying to ram this gerrymandering down people's throats. Now, what you have to understand is this gerrymandering or these redistricting things normally start at the beginning of a decade. So it's kind of weird that they would do it now. I think that the Republicans are realizing that they don't have a chance to win in the midterms after what Donald Trump has done. So they're trying to find ways to cheat. Now, the Democrats have the minority in the legislature in Texas, so they don't have many options. So they decide to walk out, make it so there's no quorum, so they can do nothing at all. And it's funny watching people like Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton spinning around in circles, making all kinds of threats that don't mean shit, but they're trying very hard. It's funny that Greg Abbott threatened and now says he's going to get these Democratic representatives who are now in Illinois and some other areas, get them arrested. We're going to arrest them. How are you going to do that? You're going to send the Texas State Highway Patrol to Illinois and arrest them? Sorry, that's not going to fucking work. You're not going to be able to do it. Secondly, they talked about vacating their positions and putting new people on. No, you can't do that either. These people were legitimately voted into their positions. You can't go against the will of the people. I saw a lawyer from Texas who was in Illinois, who knows very well the laws of Texas, and she said, this whole thing about arresting us, there's no law on the books for something like that. He's just bullshitting and trying to be a bully, and he's not very good at it. Francisco Flores, so why don't the Democrats get loud and obnoxious like the Red Russian Republicans? They need to voice opinions for us. Well, I think that's kind of starting to happen because we're seeing the likes of California and Illinois and some other places talking about, well, if you're going to do it, we're going to gerrymander too. And they'll end up taking away a lot more seats than whatever Texas wants to take away from the Democrats. And these Republicans are now screaming, you can't do that. You're stealing seats. Well, that's what you're doing too. But I've seen some people in the media say, well, Democrats, you're no better than the Republicans then. Yet that's the problem. Democrats have always tried to be above it all, tried to be better than the Republicans. We've done this now for 10 years. How's that worked out? It hasn't worked out. And as I've said so many times before, if you're fighting a bully who tends to cheat, maybe you need to get down in the mud and compete on their level in order to beat them. Trying to be the nice guy, trying to be above it all, clearly doesn't work. So we got to do something different. And by the Democrats being proactive as opposed to reactive, that tells me that they're done standing back and waiting around, that they're ready to fight. Hopefully all Democrats will get there. Cheryl says, Austin here, Dems scattered. Francisco Flores says, Ironside Abbott and plastic surgery gone bad. Ken Paxton can go to hell. I would agree with you. Also, if you arrest them, doesn't that further delay things? Yeah, you're absolutely right. But see, they don't think about that. Can you imagine that? If they could arrest them, and they can't, but if they did arrest them, that's going to delay the whole process of getting the vote in. But they don't think about it. They don't think about the future. They don't think about anything like that. They want to do it now, and they want to intimidate and scare. See, what they think is, oh, they're going to scare them, and they're going to give in, and we'll get our way. That's how Donald Trump has done it for decades. That's how the Republicans have done it for decades. So the Democrats need to say, fuck yourself. We're pushing back. We're not listening to your bullshit. Spacer says the thing is, if a Republicans gerrymander, I've been hearing about Kansas and Missouri doing it, but it's a higher risk gamble for them to do this. There is no end game with this. Yeah, it does end up becoming a pissing contest after it's all said and done. Like Texas wants to gerrymander. They've already gerrymandered the fuck out of it, but they're so scared, they're so nervous about losing seats that they want to do it again. They want to try to game the system somehow. And so they're trying to do it again now. But doing something like that could end up backfiring on them. You see, what's going on in Congress and in government in general is really souring people on the Republicans. It may backfire on them. I still think, we can talk about gerrymandering and all that sort of thing, but if we get a massive turnout in votes for the Democrats, it won't matter. They'll get buried anyway. The Brutal Truth podcast says Trump needs to be locked up in a jail with no bail. Yeah, he does. He needs to be locked up in one of those detention centers that he loves so much. Alligator Alcatraz, or really just put him in the real Alcatraz. He seems to love that spot. No renovations, just lock him in a cell, throw him some water and bread now and again, and let that fucker suffer. I wish I could say that Donald Trump will have his day in court and he will go to jail, but looking at him as of late, I don't sense that he's going to last that long. I just don't feel like there's a lot of miles left in that fucking tank. Donald Trump looks to be pretty weary, pretty bad. So hopefully, with a little luck, sooner than later, we'll be able to wrap this. We'll be able to wrap this segment up and try to move into something uh, more productive in this country. Um, I'm just looking here. Christy Gnomes DHS adds blasphemy to its list of offenses. Blasphemy? The fuck do you mean by that? Blasphemy. Um, Shelly Sofer says, I think he looks bad too. Oh yeah, he looks very bad. Adam says, sorry to change the subject, but watching my local news, Florida Fish and Game are now fully certified to enforce arrests on undocumented in Florida. So we got game wardens out there in Florida. Thank you, Adam. Don't worry about changing the topic. We'll bounce around here, and that's just fine. Florida's really going after the migrants down there, and it really strikes me as strange. They count on migrants so much for tourism and for workers, but they are just decimating all of their business, tourism, fishing, whatever else they're doing down there. It's really become a shithole, Florida has. It's a beautiful state. There's all kinds of scenery and beaches and such. But I'm hearing from people that I know that they can't afford the mortgages. They can't afford the insurance. It's just not they're literally moving out of there because it's so bad. Michael says, I think that Republicans, when they lose in the midterms, are afraid that the Democrats will proceed with the investigations on Trump's mega crimes, especially Jeffrey Epstein's. I think that's their biggest fear, investigation, which they are overdue. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I don't know if that's their biggest fear. There may be all kinds of other investigations. I mean, what you have to understand is there are people in the Trump cabinet, the Trump administration, that are all culpable of crimes. There's going to be a lot of investigations, least of all Donald Trump. As I've said, assuming Donald Trump even survives the next 6 to 8 months. But they are worried about retribution. They're worried about investigations, and they're worried about prosecutions, not only of Donald Trump, but themselves. Spacer says, I saw Eric Short about how Democrats in the Senate are finally using their leverage to push forward their agenda and not approve any more confirmation. Things are falling apart for Trump. because he can't realistically pass anything else. Again, I don't see him getting to the midterms. Yeah, this is something the Democrats could have done for a long time. They could have been more assertive. They could have been more aggressive, but for whatever reason, they chose not to do that. And I think that's what frustrates the Democratic Party. That's why the Democrats have such a low popularity rating. They really need to change this around. They need to get aggressive. Like I was talking about, going into some of these other Democratic states and gerrymandering them as a response to what they're doing in Texas and or Missouri or wherever. It doesn't do any good, apparently, to shame them, to take them to court, to try all the legal ways to shut them down. So you just have to be the bigger bully. You want to steal five seats in Texas? We're going to steal 35 seats in various states, so fuck yourself. And they're going to cry and whine, but this will be the one thing to get them to back off if that's what we truly want to do. Wanda says they should be damn worried. We will get through this, and when we come out the other side, people will be held accountable. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm surprised people aren't realizing it yet, and we don't have more people resigning. I think in the coming weeks or months, we are going to see more Republicans resign from Congress, or at least retire at the end of this term. They know what's coming. They know it's going to be a blue tsunami, a bloodbath, if you will. And they also know that whatever Donald Trump is doing is going to come to an end, and that is going to stir up a lot of investigations. Because frankly, if the Democrats get the majority in the House, just the House, they aren't going to be able to pass anything unless it's a major majority because Donald Trump won't sign it. So for the next 2 years while they're in power, all they can really do is have investigations, have hearings, expose everything about the Republicans and the Democrats day after day after day. It won't be very productive for us as a country, but it will hopefully open some eyes to who Donald Trump and the Republicans are. I don't believe that we have to fucking do that, but apparently there's some dumb people out there that still don't fucking get it. Time for Dems to fucking wake up. I agree. Noam is using scripture and propaganda hype videos to convince prospective ICE employees it's okay to disappear people. That was the blasphemy one commenter was talking about. Yeah. They don't seem to mind about human rights at all. They don't seem to care about human rights. And they might say, well, it's only the illegal immigrants. Well, no, that's not the case. There are people that are citizens that are getting locked up and mistreated. Just heard one about a little girl who was in high school, a valedictorian. They picked her up. She's of Asian descent, but she is a citizen. They picked her up and they held her for a week. And God knows what they did to her in the process. It's funny about these religious folks. I've often said the more religious somebody appears, the more overt they are, the more despicable they likely are. And I got to tell you, the Republicans are proving my point every fucking day. Spacer says, I think progressive politics getting the edge over the establishment, like with Mondani, AOC, and Sanders doing their things, it's getting to them. Watch Pelosi and Schumer start to warm up to certain positions. Yeah, they'll either warm up or they'll step aside. I've said this before. One of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in 2016, and this should be something that Republicans and Democrats alike should have taken note of. They voted for Donald Trump not knowing anything about him, not knowing if he would be good or not. But they voted for him because they were tired of establishment politics, both on the Democrat and Republican side. They took a look at Donald Trump and they said, well, he talks a good game and he's not one of those fucks, so let's vote for him and take our chances. Well, clearly they fucked up when they did that. But I think still to this point, people are tired of the same old bullshit, whether it would be normal Republicans back in the day or Democrats. They are missing a lot. They're all kind of bunched together in this whole elite category where they cater to the wealthy and they don't serve us. Yeah, that's the Democrats too. They need to change that. the young people that are coming of age and voting, they aren't gonna stand for that shit, and they aren't gonna vote for somebody who's 80 years old, who's done this on and on for decades. Who is the guy, Sergei Gar, who is a Russian, doing the vetting and hiring the White House, yet refuses to be vetted himself or give any information himself? It says he was born, um, in Malta, but wasn't. Yeah, I read about this guy. He apparently is a Russian, and he apparently has a history with the KGB, working in the fucking White House. Does that surprise you with Donald Trump? But it's certainly disconcerting. I mean, this is what Donald Trump does. He hires any idiot for any job. Clearly, everybody in his cabinet are not qualified to do the jobs they are there for. They thought they'd step in, get all the glory, and do whatever they want. What they failed to understand was there's actual administrative duties to this, and they weren't up for the job. And this guy working in the White House, who is a Russian, who is connected to KGB, in itself is a serious security risk. But Donald Trump calls him a buddy and has him walking in and out of the Oval Office. Pelosi called the Epstein files a distraction. She needs to be quiet and let younger reps take Trump on. It's a distraction. The physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the trafficking of more than 1,000 children, that's a distraction. See, that's the problem with the Democrats, especially somebody like Nancy Pelosi. They want to play the game like they played the game for the last 50 years. That game no longer exists. We've got to acknowledge that Ghislaine Maxwell is a monster. I mean, what you have to understand about Ghislaine Maxwell, she got convicted. She's in jail for 20 years. But it's not like she was an accessory. She was part of the group, part of the two anyway, that recruited young women, and she was involved in the sexual abuse. She is the most horrific monster when it comes to child sex trafficking that we've ever seen in this country. Maybe not as bad as Jeffrey Epstein, but for all we know, he's dead now. So she is the most egregious, the most horrific monster there is. And the idea that there's even some talk about pardoning her is absolutely horrific. We need to acknowledge that the Republicans are and who they are. They're people who support, they're people who protect child sex traffickers, pedophiles, if you will. That's who they are. And if they continue to protect them, as far as I'm concerned, they're no better than that. Wanda says they really kept him behind the curtain. Yeah, no doubt. Well, he's a Russian fucking spy. That would probably be a good idea, but we know about it. And why is nobody in Congress doing anything? I would think even the Republicans would want to do something at this point. Who from Fox News will be the next BLS chief? Yeah, he's got like 23 former Fox News presenters in his administration. That in itself tells you these people are incompetent and they're over their heads. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who he puts in that position. Whoever he puts in that position is going to be loyal to him, and they're either going to come out and lie because the jobs thing isn't going to get better for a long time. They're either going to lie or they're going to get fired too. You have to understand, without this information, that could be devastating to the economy of this country. Investors, people on Wall Street, a lot of people, the Fed, they need this information in order to know what they're going to do going forward. If they don't have the right information or they can't trust the information, that truly fucks things up. And that's just going to make it worse for the economy. And honestly, that shouldn't be surprising because everything that Donald Trump does is a failure. And every time he fixes it, he just makes it worse. So we're right in line with what's going to happen when he replaces this woman. We'll see if they have any integrity. and get fired, or they're going to just bend to Donald Trump like all the other cowardly fucks. So Abbott wants to arrest the Dems that left. What about Moses Mike Johnson sending the MAGAs home? That's a good point. Yeah, well, that was a different deal. They were hiding. Well, I guess the Democrats from Texas are hiding, sort of, but they're really making a point. They take away the opportunity for them to have a quorum, and they can't vote on this thing. And this is pissing them off. Greg Abbott's pissed off. Ken Paxton is pissed off. They had this little game. They were going to shove it down the throat of the Texas legislature, but somehow the Democrats came up with a way to shut them down. They don't like that. They don't mind cheating or playing games or finding loopholes. But when the Democrats do it in response, they cry and whine, "You can't do that. That's not fair." Well, motherfucker, fair is fair. You do it, we do it. And that's the way it should have been from the beginning. We should have fought the fight on their level. They would have understood it, they might have respected it, and we certainly could have beat them on it. You also have Cancun Cruz not doing his job, and Republicans who don't show up for the floor votes. Yeah, the Republicans are kind of pussies when it comes to actually doing some work. They're not very good at it, and to be honest, though, the Democrats do too. It's amazing how many people don't show up to work every day. You would think you had a cushy job like a member of Congress. You get paid $175,000 a year. You get month and 2-month breaks. You would think you could show up each and every time. Now, some of these people during this break are going back home. There have been two press conferences or town halls that they've had, and both the guys who did it got absolutely decimated. I'm sure there's going to be most people who won't go back to their states and let the people question them or respond to them because they have no courage. They know they're in bad situations. But it was funny to watch these town halls and how they continued to get harassed and harangued and beat up on, and they still constantly tried to spin it somehow. Well, I think they learned a lesson. The spinning it didn't work. People aren't buying the bullshit, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. For doing no work, they have a lot of dirt on their hands. Yeah, they do. They do work on occasion, but when they're working, they're typically only working for the wealthy, not for the middle class or the poor people. They don't care. And again, it's Democrats as well as Republicans. We have to get the Republicans out of control. But as soon as we do and the Democrats are there, we've got to put our thumbs on their heads and say, "Motherfucker, you better start working right, or we're not voting for you either. We'll vote for some independent, and you won't have any power." I think they will see the problem, and I think they will respond, at least in the short term. I think the races between J.B. Pritzker and Newsom both have been a great pushing back against Trump when it comes to prospects for 2028. Yeah, I think there's some good choices. They're both charismatic. They both are articulate, and they are both willing to fight. There's one other name I would throw in there, and I don't even know if he'd run for president, but I really like the kinds of things he's been doing lately and the way he's been talking, and he's really, really good, is John Ossoff, the senator from Georgia. He would be a good prospect, too. At this point, the only thing I care about the 2028 candidate for the Democrats is that they win. As long as we get a reasonably minded human being and they're tough and they're ready to push back, I don't care who it is, just so it's not what we have now. You have to take things a step at a time, and I know that some people will not vote for somebody because they aren't getting everything they want. Here's what you have to understand in this next election. The chances that any of us are gonna get everything we want in a candidate, not likely. So to sit and wait and find the perfect one and get everybody to agree on it just doesn't make any sense. We gotta dig out of this hole, and whatever it takes to get out of the hole, we do that. Even if it's somebody that doesn't fit everything you want. Get out of the hole and get back on track and give the Democrats power again. Then at that point, as we continue down the road, we can look at finally getting to where you wanna be. You gotta be a little patient with this. Um, you've gotta take what you can get at first and then keep going for more. That's the way to do it. You're not going to get a big win and have somebody come in and fix everything. That's not going to happen. We need somebody who knows the business of politics, who knows the government. They need to know their way around government. And, that's one of the things that's holding Donald Trump back. He doesn't know shit about the government. He doesn't know how the government runs. And frankly, the government is bigger than Donald Trump. And because he doesn't know what he's doing, that's why he fails all the time. He has no clue what he's doing. Joe Biden, on the other hand, knew very well what to do, and that's why he was successful. We need somebody with the skills of Joe Biden, somebody who's younger, and a bit pugilistic, ready to take his gloves off and go at it in the mud with these dumb fucks. Spacer says Ossoff is great, but I think we should leave him in the Senate seat until we find someone good to replace him. Georgia's a very purple state. Yeah, yeah, no, I don't doubt you there. That's maybe a good idea. And Ossoff is still relatively new to Congress. It's kind of like Jasmine Crockett. Everybody wants Jasmine Crockett to run for the presidency. She's only been in office for a couple of years. Even AOC's would have been in there 4 or 6 years too. These two, while they're great prospects for the presidency down the road, I don't know if this country is going to vote for a black woman or a woman of color at this point, based on what we saw on November 5th. I wish they would. I think Kamala would still be a great president. I think AOC could do it. And I think Jasmine, as much as I love her, she needs a little more experience of running the game. She's very smart. She's a lawyer. But we need her in Congress for a while as well. Now, there might be a chance she would run against Cornyn and some of the other dipshit Republicans, maybe Paxton, as a senator. I would love to see that. I would love to see her take a Republican Senate seat, turn it into a Democrat, and she would be a senator. She would be fucking awesome. My only concern about that is if she loses, then she's not in the Senate and she's no longer in Congress. And we need people like her. Let's see. Will be the most challenging presidency in history to try to right this ship. Yeah, it's going to take somebody who's particularly motivated. We're going to need somebody younger because it's going to be a daunting task. And it's going to be somebody who's have to be strong and constantly pushing on this stuff. We need somebody who's going to go into the presidency and put some work in. It's going to have to be that. Otherwise, we're going to be flailing around and doing the dog paddle trying to get out from underneath it. They need to understand the new rules. Yes. And there has to be new rules. I know the likes of Schumer and I know the likes of Nancy Pelosi and even Hakeem Jeffries to a certain extent. They want to do what they've always done, and they believe that's the right way to do it. And at one point in time, that may have been correct. That would have been the right thing to do. Politics as usual. But unfortunately, we're in a different parallel universe at this point. We don't have business as usual. We don't have politics as usual. It's a fucking shit show. So if you're going to get in the shit show, put on a Tyvek suit and get ready to get buried in shit. But that's what it's going to take to win. I was thinking of a good analogy. So we have Hegseth considering a governor's run. Ramaswamy here in Ohio, Wheatley running for the Senate, It's like a game of musical chairs. They are in trouble with the crimes they are currently committing and are looking for a government seat to land on after Trump is gone. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know that Donald Trump is um, really much help these days. And as time goes on, as things get more shitty, he's not going to be as much help. But I think a lot of these people are running around trying to get things set up before he's gone because they know when that happens, that's going to be problematic for them. Wanda Ronk says Dream Team POTUS, Newsom, VP Pritzker, and Speaker Buttigieg. That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad at all. I mean, I think Pritzker and Newsom are interchangeable. The one thing Newsom has, he is running California, which is the fourth largest economy in the world. He knows how to play at that level. But even at that point, Pritzker, he's got Chicago and a big state in Illinois, too. I think either of them could do it. I think a lot will tell as to how they play out over the next 2, 3 years. Things can change so quickly. Somebody can come out of the fucking blue that we never even thought of that might be a likely candidate. I like the idea of having Buttigieg Speaker of the House, assuming we have the House majority. But before we can really get him to be the Speaker, he's got to be a member of the House. You got to remember about Buttigieg. Buttigieg is a very smart guy, but on a federal level, he's very inexperienced. He was the transportation secretary under Joe Biden, did a great job. So he's got some experience on that level. But the only elected position he was ever in was mayor of what was it, that Indiana town, not Champaign, something else. Um, so he doesn't have a lot of experience, and he's another one like Jasmine Crockett. He needs some time. He needs to pay his dues. He's incredibly valuable. I think he's somebody we keep close in and put him in the right position so that he continues to grow. But he's still pretty young too. I don't see him as a presidential candidate for a while. Throw in the fact that he's gay, and we've got a fucked up, racist, misogynistic, homophobic country, apparently, based on the November 5th election. I don't know that he would be a position for the presidency, but he should definitely be in the cabinet one way or another. Um, I don't know if he'll be the speaker because then he would have to run for the House of Representatives, and I'm not sure he's going to do that. There's no indications that he's running for a House seat in 2026. Um, but we do need to do something better than Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House. I'm sad to say that too, because when I first saw Jeffries, I thought, God, he's going to be great. He's powerful. He's a good speaker. He's tough, but he wimps out on a lot of stuff, and he really defers to the old people. And that's just not the way it is anymore. That's not what's going on. I think more realistically for the speakership would be Representative Garcia. He's able to push somewhat and isn't in Pelosi's pocket. Yeah, Garcia would be a good choice. Did Trump ever pay dues to be president? No, he did not. He did not. That's the one thing I had an argument with Trump about. Kamala Harris didn't have any experience. I said, well, she was a prosecutor, the attorney general of California. She was a U.S. senator, and she was a vice president. So she was more experienced than Donald Trump by a long shot. The guy looked at me and says, no, he wasn't. Trump was experienced. I go, how was Trump experienced? He said, well, he was president before. I said, prior to that, what was he experienced with? He was a reality television person. And the thing is, that's my point. If you're going to run the government, you better know how it works and know how to use it. But Donald Trump had no experience. He was an anomaly. He was a popularity winner because Trump fucks are stupid. How about kick Hegseth out and put him in there? I mean, that would be great, but that'll never happen. Donald Trump is not gonna put a Democrat in charge of the Department of Defense. It's just not gonna happen. See, that's the key. We gotta get to the point where we have control of the House and the Senate so we can do some of these things. But as long as Donald Trump is president, there's never gonna be a Democrat in his cabinet. We need to get another Democratic president, and then somebody like Buttigieg will get a position similar to that. But he would be decent with that. But I don't even know if he's experienced enough to be the the Secretary of Defense. I mean, that's a big organization, and you have to have some experience handling big organizations. I don't know that Buttigieg has had that. I think his skills would be more valuable elsewhere in the cabinet. Spacer says Murphy or Ben Schatz of Iowa for Senate Democratic leader. I don't know much. Oh, Murphy. Yeah, yeah. Murphy would be a good choice too. I think he's a little softer than I would like to. I mean, he's better than Schumer by a long shot, but um, I could stand somebody even a little more fiery than that. What about Buttigieg being vice president? I think that's far more likely than being president in the short term. But I don't know. I think the Democrats are going to be gun shy about um, involving anybody that is part of a minority, so to speak. We learned a lot on November 5th. I don't know that they didn't vote if they didn't vote for Kamala because she was a woman, or she was black, or if it was a combination thereof. But clearly, we've got some racist, misogynistic, homophobic people in this country. And as I've said before, the bottom line is we got to win. Once we win, we can start to change things, but we got to do what's best, what's going to guarantee us the win. Adam Grant says if the House members made Pelosi and others made Tiny in the House, they'd leave. Yeah, taking away their power would be a good thing. Now, Pelosi isn't a leader in the House anymore. She's just been around for 100 years, and they defer to her. She's in her 80s, for fuck's sake. She told us that Joe Biden couldn't handle be president because he's too old. She's older than Biden. Fucking quit. Dems need to fight. The not interrupting your enemy while your enemy is making a mistake is not acceptable. We need to point out their mistakes and ensure the memory sticks with the voters. Yeah, we got to learn a lesson from the Republicans. How did they win on November 5th? They had messages, they had narratives, and they pounded it in their people's heads. They pounded it into their heads. That's actually what worked and how they got elected. So we need to take note of that and do something similar. Wanda says, no, I mean when you get control. Well, when we get control, we can do a lot of things. And put people in the proper positions, people that are going to get things done. So I agree with you there. I think Buttigieg should run for governor of Michigan, then seek the presidency, though we're still not sure what he's considering. He Since he turned down the Senate run, he'd be better than Whitmer. That's actually not a bad choice for Buttigieg. Put him in as governor. They do like him in Michigan. He's a very popular Democrat, generally speaking. And it's pretty commonly understood that the people who are the best prospects for a presidential candidacy are governors, because as governor of a state, they're kind of holding a similar position as president because they're a CEO of an entire state. A lot of governors have become president, so that may very well be the best choice for Buttigieg. SM says if Trump goes away, find a reason for you think Vance would be better. I get this a lot. People are going, oh, he's worse. Nah, he's not worse. Don't get me wrong. JD Vance is horrible. He would be a horrible president. But he's weaker than Donald Trump. A lot of Republicans don't even like JD Vance. Imagine this. Some bill is they're attempting to pass some bill that's close, and it looks like it may not pass. Donald Trump calls up some reps and threatens them or does whatever he does, and they vote his way. You honestly think JD Vance is going to be able to intimidate members of the House or the Senate to vote his way? I don't think so. I think JD Vance has some other problems too. He's very easily manipulated by the wealthy. That isn't necessarily a good thing for us, but once Donald Trump goes down and things go to shit, the Republicans are going to have to try to figure out a way to settle things down and try to redeem themselves. So they're going to want JD Vance to act more normally and not be so fucking crazy. On top of that, JD Vance has to consider running again in 32 or 28. And they're going to have to look at the polls and that sort of thing. I don't think JD Vance is a great choice for president. I'm not looking forward to that prospect, but I think he will be somewhat better than Donald Trump. The reason why the Republicans are having so much trouble with Donald Trump is because he's easily manipulated if you understand him. But you never know when he's going to go off half-cocked and do something fucking nuts. He's not controllable, and that is a problem for the Republicans. JD Vance is fully controllable. Should Dems team with the rational Republicans and not compete in certain elections? We need to dull the primary threat. Well, Kamala tried to do something similar. She kind of buddied up to Liz Cheney, thinking maybe we could get some of the reasonable Republicans to vote Democrat. That was an absolute failure. To think we can get the Republicans to do the right thing and vote for a Democrat over a crazy Republican, that's silly. I'd love to say that we could do that. Common sense would tell you that would happen. That didn't happen in November 5th of 2025. Much as we wanted it to, as much as we planned for, it didn't happen. No, we can't trust any Republican, whether or not we think they are reasonably minded. All right. Incandescent Light said, I would love for Pete B. Love Pete B for Michigan governor. Big Gretch was great for us until Diaper Donnie got elected. She is so quiet now. Yeah. I wonder why. I wonder why she's so quiet. Adam Grant Vance would have more time to do more damage. More time. When you say more time, are you presuming he gets reelected in 2028? I don't think he'd get reelected in 2028. More time, he would have, whatever's left of this term. But again, he's weaker than Donald Trump. When Donald Trump is gone, MAGA itself as an entity becomes weaker. And you've got a non-charismatic, dumb motherfucker that they don't even really like running the show. This is good news for MAGA if that's what happens. When we retake the presidency, can they go after the Heritage Foundation? Vance is a pussy. He is a pussy. Yeah, in order for the Heritage Organization to get anything done, they got to keep going. And if something stops that in the middle, we can go back and dismantle a lot of that. And I suspect that's what will happen. Mike Johnson appears to have weakness. Can we point those out and start taking out Trump enablers? That may be the thing to do. Somebody has said that before. When it comes to taking out a dictator, the best way to do it is not to go at them directly, but take out the pillars that hold them up. And that would be somebody like Mike Johnson. Yeah, that may not be a bad idea. Some investigative journalists looking into the lives of these goofy fucks and start taking them down one by one. That's probably a good idea. People need to follow these losers at a legal distance 24/7, all of them. Give them no peace. Couldn't agree more. We've got to keep pounding on these people. We got to make it so it's not fun for them to be in Congress, that they resign or do whatever, but we got to keep pounding on them. One of the few things my father told me, never really gave me much great advice, but He said, "If you're fighting somebody, make sure when you put them down, you keep them down." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if you don't put them down permanently, or at least for a good period of time, they're gonna come back at you." And that's absolutely true, with the Republicans. When we ended for Donald Trump, he needs to be done, done. The Republicans need to be done. They need to figure out a way to redeem themselves and change their ways and never come back in this situation again. Republicans have nothing to offer Democrats. We saw that on November 5th with Cheney in the campaign. You're absolutely right. Don't trust Republicans. JD Vance is Peter Thiel's puppet. He's the Heritage Foundation's creation. I don't think Peter Thiel created the Heritage Foundation, but he's created some other things. And Peter Thiel is clearly a threat to this country, and we've got to recognize that. But again, when it comes to fixing problems, we got to take it a step at a time. There's really no way to fix everything all at once. So we got to take the biggest problem, that being Donald Trump, take that out of the equation, and then we work on the next thing. That's the only way to do it. Hodiner, what happened to all the Gaza genocide protesters? Has Trump successfully controlled that? Yeah, I was talking about that on TikTok earlier today. You know, prior to the election, we had a lot of far left protesters complaining that Joe Biden was Genocide Joe and he was doing horrible things in the Israel Gaza war. And I told them, if you vote for Donald Trump, it's going to be worse. And for whatever reason, they didn't believe that. And the reason it ends up being worse is this. As much as Joe Biden didn't do all the things they wanted him to do, he did as much as he could. But there's one thing he did that was most important. He put reins on Benjamin Netanyahu and held him back from doing whatever the fuck he wants. And as I told people before, if you vote for Donald Trump, these two are buddies. They're two of a kind, two peas in a pod. Donald Trump will let him do whatever the fuck he wants. And that's what's happening. Keep in mind, Benjamin Netanyahu does not want peace in the Middle East. If there was peace in the Middle East, he'd be run out of his job and probably put in jail. Having a war going on works to his benefit, keeps him in power and keeps him out of jail. So if you think Benjamin Netanyahu wants peace in the Middle East, that's bullshit. Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday or today that it's his plan to occupy the entirety of Gaza. Is that what you far left wanted? Did that work out the way you were hoping it was going to work out? Because that's pretty fucked up as far as I'm concerned. And what does Donald Trump tell Israel about that war? He said, we might as well just get in there and just fucking end it, you know, doing something dramatic or tragic or devastating. That's what Donald Trump is doing for you far left people that thought Joe was doing a bad job. Sorry, you fucked up. You made the wrong choice. And now what's going on in the Middle East, the blood is on your hands. Stephen Miller needs to go first. They are protesting every Monday at the Heritage Foundation and really getting in their faces when they come out of the building. Yeah, we got to keep doing that. And Stephen Miller is a special kind of fucking creepy. He is not somebody who wants what's best for this country. He only wants what's best for him. He is a racist. He's a misogynist. He's a cuck, apparently. I wonder how his wife's doing with Elon. Maybe she'll be the next baby mama. But you're right. He is the worst of the worst. Donald Trump keeps saying the worst of the worst and going into the detention centers. Well, if that was true, Stephen Miller would be at Alligator Alcatraz right now. What are your favorite creators to follow for news? I get tired of the clickbait titles for some of them. Yeah, you know, I watch a lot of different ones. Some of them I can't even remember the names, but Chasing Oz is good. I like Aaron Parnas when he's just telling the news. I like Hawk sometimes. there's some other ones, and I don't remember their names. I just flipped through this thing. I'm looking for information, not looking to follow particular followers. But there's a lot of good creators out there, but you gotta be careful. There's something new that I'm seeing on TikTok. Somebody asked me about it. There was a video came out, by, oh, what's his name? He's a lawyer. I met him. I know. I can't think of the name. I'm old, okay? But anyway, he's a respected lawyer, and he was talking about Donald Trump getting indicted. And on this video, they put today's date on it. Somebody sent it to me and go, "What's going on here? I haven't heard about an indictment." And I'll tell you what some of these scammers are doing. They're going back in time, getting people's old videos when they're saying things that might catch people's attention, like Donald Trump's getting indicted. And then they put the current date on it, and they're just trying to suck you in, trying to clickbait. So be careful of those people when you're out there because they're all over the fucking place. I've been running into them all the time. We talk about the war in Israel and Gaza. Hamas is not in the conversation anymore. It shows how this war is against the simple Palestinians um, trying to live their lives and survive. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing is, Benjamin Netanyahu and the far left, and allegedly Donald Trump, they were going to protect the Palestinians in Gaza. Well, there have been tens of thousands of innocent people killed by Israel in Gaza. And there doesn't seem to be any shame for it either. You want to go after Hamas, you want to kill Hamas, good for you, good on you. But when tens of thousands of innocent people die, something is fucking wrong. Odiner says Malcolm Nance is a great creator. Yes, he is. He's very good. Popak, Cohen. You know what? I'm not so sure about Cohen. You gotta understand, Cohen was a shill for Donald Trump. He was a despicable human when he was working with Donald Trump. He said some things recently that kind of bother me. I think he has some good points now and again, but frankly, based on his past and some of the things he said, I just don't trust the motherfucker. And if I don't trust him, I don't really listen to them much. Yes, you're absolutely right, Spacer. Cohen is a clickbait doomsday sayer. And he's like every one of the other Republicans. It's all about views, it's all about making money. And if that is your first and foremost goal, I can't listen to him because I can't trust you. Wanda says I just can't warm up to Cohen. No, he's a despicable motherfucker. The only reason people like him now is because he's speaking out against Donald Trump. And he's speaking out against Donald Trump because Donald Trump sent him to jail. That doesn't make him any different than when he was working for Donald Trump, how he does business for himself. Wasn't sure between if it was Brian Tyler Cohen and Michael Cohen. Big difference there. Brian Tyler Cohen is great. He does a good job. Michael Cohen, just not feeling him at this point. They are the same with their bottom lines as views and money. You're absolutely right. And, that's even Midas Touch to a certain extent. Now, don't get me wrong. Midas Touch is a solid organization. They give great information, and the accolades they're getting now, they well deserve. But they're in business. They have to get views, they have to get ratings, and they have to make money. And I don't fault them for that. They're in a business. That's what you should be doing. But when that happens, sometimes you have to alter what you do and what you don't do in order to appease those people. And when you have to do that, um, it could cause some problems with the credibility of what you're saying. I'm not saying that's happening with them. I'm not a big fan of Midas Touch, not because they don't do a good job. It's just, it gets to be too much of a production. It takes too long to get to the point for me. And when I'm scrolling, I just want to hear the facts. I'll look into the details on my own from trusted sources so I can talk about it. I don't have time to listen to a half-hour story or an hour podcast. I'm trying to get the information as quickly as I can. Angry Mongoose says, I tried listening to one of Michael Cohen's Substack's lives, but I didn't last the entirety. Yeah. Uh, there, as much as I do lives and I do the podcast, honestly, I don't listen to too many lives and I don't listen to too many podcasts. For me, it's more about getting the information as quickly as I possibly can. I hear the story, then I dig out the story, then I talk to you. Um, I talk about this so much that to listen to a podcast for entertainment just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm fucking doing a podcast every day. I've got good guests on. I don't need to listen to a podcast when I have those guests on. I can't watch Bill Maher since he gave the Trump is okay in person speech. Yeah. You know, I've never been a big Bill Maher fan. I'm hoping that maybe he'll lose his job and they'll put Stephen Colbert in his position. Wanda says Glenn Kirshner. That's the lawyer I was thinking about. I met Glenn Kirshner last fall at a conference where he was speaking and I was speaking. Wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. Super smart guy. I really like him a lot. If he's talking, I'll listen to the whole thing. I guess at least they're not owned by billionaires. No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I really don't have anything bad to say about Midas Touch. I'm not trying to say anything bad about them. I like them. I'm proud of what they're doing. I'm glad they're beating Rogan. It's just for my taste, for my usage. I don't listen to it much. I listen to small takes from Midas Touch, and that's very valuable. These guys are good. These guys are good. And we kind of need somebody like that. If we're going to have people making an exodus from mainstream media, we need something like that for people to go to. So I think they're incredibly valuable. I have a lot of respect for Midas Touch. I don't have any complaints. I can't say they do anything wrong. It's just for me, it's just not my style. Do I feel the same way about Parnas? Yeah, I do. I mean, I know his situation with his support of Israel, and that figures. He's Jewish. I like when Parnas talks. What I like about him is he'll have a story and give the points and then just moves on or ends the video. I don't listen. I don't need to hear a whole video to decide what I'm going to say. I just need to hear the basics of the story so that I can look at the sources and kind of build it around that. Spacer says Kirshner is okay, but he has a problem like BTC and Mark Elias when it comes to doomsday. Good talker when fighting, which seems like a waste. Yeah, that's the thing about Kirshner too. He's in the business. This is his business. So he has to structure what he's saying, trying to get views and followers and that sort of stuff. I will tell you this, and I'm not saying this makes me better than anybody because it doesn't. Whenever I do videos, I don't think about how many views I'm going to get or how I'm going to do it or what. When I started doing this, I made the decision. I'm old. I'm sitting in my living room, not exactly a thirst trap. I don't really have any particular talent other than talking. So instead of trying to game this situation and figure out how to get followers, I'm just going to do what I do, let the chips fall where they may, and see what happens. And so far, it's worked out well enough for me that I'm perfectly content with the way it goes. This is not a business for me. And because of that, I don't have to couch anything I say. What do you make of IHIP? I've been kind of annoyed at the way they present news, but they are good at trashing Trump. IHIP. I'm not familiar with IHIP. Maybe I am. I just don't know the name. I just can't understand the Trumper mindset. What will they say when this falls apart? I have a feeling they aren't going to say much. They're going to go back under their rocks and try to be quiet so we don't bug them. But I think we need to dig them out from their rocks, expose them, and just keep pounding on them. Aaron Parnas is someone I've come to appreciate. He reminds me of an old-time news station. He just lists the news stories of the day without bluster. I agree. I do like that format. It's valuable to me as I'm trying to come up with information. I'll hear a story that he says, I'll listen to half his video, I'll go, "That's a good story." Now I'm gonna go find out what all the facts are. Not that I don't trust him, I just feel better if I've looked it up myself. There's a good Star Wars monologue from the show Andor. Look up Nemec's manifesto. There'll be times when the struggle seems impossible, alone, unsure. Dwarf the scale of the enemy. The frontier of the rebellion is everywhere, truly inspiring in this moment. And Spacer, you sound like you're a movie nerd like our buddy Will, who's on here frequently. No hate on that. I mean, I tell you what, Will always references movies a lot with Star Wars and that sort of thing, and people love that. And I think it's helpful when you make those analogies because um, people understand it better when you can kind of explain it in a way that makes sense to them. I made an analogy, and I'm going to make this. We're going to come to the end here in a minute, but I want to make this analogy um, because I think this is how we as a country and the people in this country are feeling. Um, in the late 1980s, I was in my late 20s. My wife and I just were going to have our first baby, and I'll be honest with you. At that time of my life, we had a lot of things going on: house, insurance, a baby, cars, bills, trying to start a family and do all this stuff. And it was really expensive. And my wife and I weren't making a lot of money at the time, so it was a struggle every day. It was an absolute struggle every day. I'll tell you how bad it got. On the day my wife and I found out that she was pregnant with our first son, we both got laid off that day. And times were tough in that period. Now, I have a father, or had a father, who was a lot like Donald Trump. He made a lot of money. He was an arrogant fuck, misogynist, racist, all that sort of stuff. He and I didn't get along too well, as you might imagine. Um, and even though times were tough and money was short and he had plenty of money, I would never go to him to ask for money because I knew that there would be strings attached. I knew there would be hell to pay. So I never confronted him. But there was something I kept in my back pocket that made me feel better. And it was this: if times ever got desperate, if I was hanging by a thread, if I was on the verge of crumbling, I know at least I could go back on my knees to my father and he would help bail me out. He had plenty of money. I know he had plenty of money. He bought his mistress a brand new fucking car. He had money. And so I always had that in my back pocket and it helped me keep my mind straight. But one day we get in a situation where it's really bad. A car blows up and we've got to pay for that. And we can't even afford the shit that we normally pay in our bills. So I was stressed out. I was terrified at this point. I got a new baby. I got all these expenses. And now we've got a car that doesn't work. We can't get to work. I'm desperate. I don't know what to do in that case. So I went in my back pocket and I said, well, at least I have this. Even though I'm going to embarrass myself and I'm going to have to take some shit, I'm going to go to my father and see if he'll bail me out. I wasn't asking for a ton of money, for him anyway. I was just enough to get us past this bump and get us back on track. I didn't want him to pay all my bills and make everything okay. I just wanted to get past this deal. So I go to them and I think, at least I got this going for me. And I go to him and I ask him, and you know what he says to me? He basically says, fuck off. He's not going to help me. Got the money. He could do it very easily. But like Donald Trump, he doesn't care about anybody but himself. And that was tough because we didn't have the money to pay for things. But my wife and I put our nose to the grindstone and we figured it out. But that wasn't the thing that was the most difficult for me. It was that I lost that one thing that I thought could save me if all hell broke loose. I had that one fail safe that my father would help me if things were desperate. And the moment I lost that, I said, motherfucker, I'm on my own now. I don't have a lot going. I don't have a lot of money. I'm on my own, and my one safety net does not exist. It never existed. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I think we as a country kind of feel the same way. When Donald Trump got elected on November 5th, people were upset and scared about what might be. But I think all of us thought, well, it's going to be hard. It's going to be fucked up. But at least there are probably people in Congress that are decent and have some credibility and will put up some guardrails against Donald Trump. We have laws, we have norms, we have rules. At least Donald Trump will have to stay within those guardrails. But what happened? What happened is we don't have anything. We don't have decency in our Congress. We don't have guardrails. We don't have norms. We don't have rule of law. We don't have courts. All the things that we thought would save us, we find out now don't exist. And much like the time when I was in that situation, that tells us one thing. We're on our fucking own. It's up to us to do it. And we will do it. But it's devastating. It's terrifying to know that your one thing that you thought might hold out some hope no longer exists. And that's what we found out in this country. And I think that is devastating for people. There's no accountability. There's no one there to help us. Nothing is there to stop this rolling snowball down a hill. I don't say that to scare you, because the last thing we need to do in this country right now is be scared. What we need to do is be pissed. And I'll tell you, in my lifetime, when I had no money and I was backed into a corner like we are now as a country, I always said this: if I got nothing to lose, I can afford to be crazy. And if I get crazy, watch the fuck out, because it's going to get ugly up in this bitch. And that's the way we should be with this country, because that's where we are. We got to do whatever, anywhere. Like one other thing my dad always told me, there ain't no rules in the street fight. If there's a stick or a rock, you better pick it up before they do and win this motherfucking fight. We need the ugly to come to the surface so we can fix it. Yeah, and Donald Trump has been very adept at bringing things to the surface. I feel like our whole foundation has been ripped out from under us. Yeah, that's true. And in one sense, it may be good, because that foundation was pretty creaky in the first place. Now that it's been all exposed, we have a better opportunity of fixing everything. But the most powerful people in our country isn't the president or SCOTUS, it's the people. We have the most power. There's no question. But the power doesn't mean anything until we exercise it. So as I said, you got nothing to lose. We can afford to be crazy. Time to get crazy. No fear, be mad. Tell people, if you're not pissed off, you're not paying attention. Stand up and fight. You're absolutely right, Wanda. That's exactly right. The only emotion we should be having right now is anger, being pissed off. Fear is not going to get you anywhere except losing. They want you to be afraid. So by virtue of that, I refuse to be afraid. I'd rather spit in their face and take a whooping as opposed to bend to them. But we aren't going to take a whooping, because we do have the power, and people are now starting to realize it. All right. I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast and this Substack Live. I really want to thank you all for joining me on this show. It's so helpful to me when I got people involved and coming up with great concepts and perspectives and questions and that sort of thing. Makes this whole thing so much more interesting. And that's on you. You're the ones that make this interesting, not me. So thank you very much for joining me on this live. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great night, a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.